Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today we're beginning to wrap up our wishlisting series and we are going to look at the mighty Seraphon today. I know this book is rather new, but this is just a bit of wishlisting for things I'd like to see about Seraphon in the future. There's no right or wrongs in this at all, and it's merely just my thoughts on stuff I'd like to see from this army in the future. We've now had all the battle tomes come out in Age of Sigmar, and it would be great to see and think about what these armies could now have in the future, because everything from here on out is brand new. We're looking at this one today because it's been requested by one of the channel's patrons. And so let's get cracking into this, and this is 10 things I'd like to see for Seraphon. Number 1, I'd like to see a dual kit with Saurus cavalry and skink cavalry. Those of you who have been playing Seraphon, or Lizardmen as they were known in the world that was in Warhammer Fantasy, might remember a particular Dogs of War unit known as Kitchy's Raiders. Yes, they had hilarious names back then, and that was all the craze of all these weird Aztec funny names. But Kitchy's Raiders were a skink unit riding not cold ones, but horned ones, a much more agile and more vicious version of the cold one that existed only in the Southlands. Southlands was sort of a separate, more barbaric version of the Seraphon, or Lizardmen back then as they were called, and I think this would be just a really great kit. The cold ones definitely need an update. They look so dated, and especially when you put them next to the now called Drakespawn Knights from Cities of Sigmar or Dark Elves Order Serpentis, but they were cold ones back in the old world, and you see people doing this conversion all the time of swapping the Seraphon models onto the Dark Elf Drakespawn cold ones. And I think just an update to that kit, not necessarily going too far from the look, and maybe not even going into the sort of raptorish look that you've got from the Drakespawn, but making their own sort of look, but definitely an updated kit that's not quite so, how to put it bluntly, rather comical sort of look would be the right way to say it, I think. The next thing, and continuing along this Saurus line, I think we need a Saurus figurehead for Seraphon. Back in the world there was, we had the mighty Kroq-Gar, who was a fantastic hero and model. And you still can use Kroq-Gar's model as a Saurus Old Blood nowadays. But I think a Saurus sort of figurehead, someone to lead these armies and focus around them, especially probably a more coalesced sort of Saurus character, would be a really cool thing to have, and just give the army a bit of a different shift from the more Starborn led figurehead guy that is Lord Kroq. Speaking of Lord Kroq and Slann in general, there's a couple of things I'd really like to see for Slann, and this is going to be my point 3 and 4. Definitely, I'd like to see the Slans made bigger. And maybe not the Slann themselves get bigger, but I think the palanquin of this immense power that they travel on should be much, much bigger than it currently is. I think these guys could definitely go up to, 100 mil base and have this amazing sort of palanquin with some Saurus guard on the base of it, and all these orderlies of skinks rocking around the Slann in the middle on this mighty plinth. I really think it'd be a great centerpiece for an army, and just make the Slann seem that much more important, as they rightfully should be. And while we're talking about Slann, I think the army's abilities were like the Realm Shaper engine, and the abilities where they have they can ignore the terrain that's bad and only get the good terrain and stuff like that. I really love to see that sort of mechanic, the realm shaping as I'd call it, pushed even further. Maybe even the ability to move terrain on the battlefield would be something really awesome to add to Seraphon. I think the whole idea of what it does is really cool, and really pushing into that idea would be something great for the future. Point number 5, and I think this is probably the most wanted single thing out of anything I ever hear Seraphon players talking about, and that is new Saurus. And I wouldn't just want any Saurus. I think you've got to make it a dual kit. You've got to have the Saurus Warriors and the Saurus Guard in the same kit. Make it a dual kit. And maybe even throw some alternate weapon options, like maybe some giant two-handed clubs instead of halberds for the Saurus Guard, so you could have the halberds and shields, or maybe these giant two-handed clubs. The same goes for Saurus as well. I think you can make some really cool weapon options, and maybe the giant clubs even, potentially not a whole option for a whole unit, but maybe they become a sort of, 1 in 10 or 1 in 5 can have this giant club instead. Sort of a special weapon within the unit would be rather cool, I think. Keeping on with the new models, and really there is Seraphon's biggest flaw for me is the current model range. They just need a bit of an update, but at least they've got a book that's updated and they've got great rules now. So continuing on with some new models, and definitely Croxigors. These guys are really an interesting one for me because they don't actually, I don't like the current models personally. I actually think the old metal ones previous to the current incarnation of them was actually better. That's not to say it was perfect. Like, I definitely want Croxigors that look more like the Croxigors out of Warhammer Total War, but definitely new Croxigor models with a much more savage crocodilian look is really needed, I think. Continuing on, as I said, with the trend of just new models, I think a multi-part kit for Salamanders and Razornauts, and maybe even a new type of artillery-based monster would be cool, or maybe a combat variation of that would be great to add into that kit. So I'm not exactly sure what you do. Maybe something a bit more vicious and a bit more fighty, more like a goanna or something like that. For those who aren't Australian, a goanna is a giant monitor with these massive claws, very similar to a Komodo dragon. Would be something much more commonly known, I guess. But like maybe a combat-oriented monster to go in the kit along with them, and make this sort of 3-model dual kit where you can build any of these 3 options and get skink handlers along with all of them. Would be really cool. Next up, and point number 8, definitely needing plastic heroes. There's so many models in this range that just need a plastic hero variation, from Saurus, the various Saurus heroes to Skink Star Priests. The Star Priest is the one with the current plastic model. The other one, I'm pretty sure I'm right, I do get the names confused of those a lot. The Starseer, the Slan, we've already talked about them though. And other things would be really cool to add to the gallery. I think there's some cool plastic heroes. The whole line there just needs a bit of an update. You can probably scale them to be much bigger and much more aggressively posed and open with nice big tails. Very much like the Saurus Old Blood model you get with the Carnosaur kit when you put him on foot. For a new model though, I definitely think we need that bigger dinosaurs. Now everyone likes playing with dinosaurs, but we really don't have that ginormous dinosaur. The Carnosaur, the Stegodon and the Bastillodon are all rather small. None of them sort of strike me as this massive monster, and I'm going to go back to some of the history of the lizardmen and talk about the Thunder Lizard. This is definitely something I want to see come to life fun in the tabletop. We've got the technology and the ability to build giant plastic models now. So definitely a Thunder Lizard, which is generally seen as either a more Diplodocus or Brachiosaurus looking creature. It varies between the two sort of sources on what you see, but that's definitely what I want to have a look at and what I want to see made when I think about the Thunder Lizard. My last point, and point number 10 that I want to talk about, is I really want Lord Croak to become a bigger player in the whole overall scheme and setting of Age of Sigmar. This Slan is supposed to be so utterly powerful, so immensely powerful, and so ancient. I feel he needs to be really hard injected into the main narrative and have him pulling so many strings, and even to the point where he's rivaling the gods in power. Now I know all the issues Croak has on the tabletop, and that's by the by and by the side. I'm not talking about that here, but I think his narrative needs to be sort of rammed down and smashed into that lore with such a massive impact that no one can stop him. But that is 10 things I'd like to see for Seraphon. I'd like to know what you'd like to see from Seraphon in the future. I know there are newer battle tome, but this is all just a bit of wish listing fun, and that's all there is to this. But really like to know what you guys would like to see from the Seraphon in the future. however far distant that future may be for Seraphon model updates. But don't forget to leave those thoughts and stuff down in the comments below, and like the video and subscribe to the channel. The channel is growing so fast, it's amazing, and thank you for everyone who supported us. When I started this series, we were barely over 500 subscribers. We're now over 1,000, well over 1,000 subscribers now, and thank you to everyone who supports the channel. You guys are amazing. Stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the grey. I'll see you all again real soon. Ciao for now.